Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Again, keep up with the crisis and the mass mobilization to stop foreclosures at Tarpley.net, Tarpley.net, one-stop shopping for the conceptual basis of understanding what's going on. So, Governor Martin O'Malley of Maryland, running for re-election against the reactionary gangster Ehrlich, has sent a letter to the chief judge of the Maryland Court of Appeals saying it's time to halt foreclosures in Maryland for at least 60 days. It's actually a letter jointly done by Governor Martin O'Malley and the congressional delegation, and that may include Republicans because there are a couple of Republicans in that delegation. We have a retired judge here in Maryland, Alan M. Wilner, who says preliminary audits have shown that hundreds of such bogus affidavits have been filed in Maryland circuit courts. The judges are alarmed at this development, which is an assault on the integrity of the judicial process. Hey, I smell perjury. You try to do a constructive fraud on the Maryland courts, and you can be packed away to the state pen. And that's where the zombie bankers should go. It's time for personal accountability. Don't you think Republicans love to talk about personal responsibility and personal accountability? The Prince George's County, Maryland courts are doing a review starting in early December, and the Montgomery County Circuit Court is basically frozen 400 foreclosures with these problems. So you get the idea. Now, interesting is the response of the reactionary Republicans. On the television program, I think it was actually the Fox network this past Sunday, when Wasserman Schultz, the Democrat, said that she favored a freeze, a moratorium, we had Eric Cantor, reactionary Republican, and the guy who would become the House Majority Leader. Now, what did he say? Did he respond with the anger of Tea Party populism against those Wall Street bankers who have been bailed out with the TARP and all the rest of it? Did he put on the cloak of economic populism? He did not. All the Tea Party populism fell to the ground in an instant as Cantor lined up to defend where his bread is buttered, his owners, the Wall Street zombie bankers. And he said two things. First, he said, if you have a freeze on mortgages, that will deprive the lenders of the protections they need. The lenders are the zombie banks that you bailed out with your tax money under the TARP, the Fed, and the FDIC. Those zombie bankers are alive today because of taxpayer money. They turn around, and their way of saying thank you is to foreclose, and not even foreclose legally, but foreclose with bogus documents, can't produce the note, chain of property, of ownership is broken, and Cantor, the reactionary Republican, is worried about protecting the zombie banks who are the lenders. Tea Party fanatics, please take note. If you can't see this, I don't know what's with you. You've got to remove the scales from your eyes. The second thing that the reactionary Republican Cantor says is, we've got to have personal responsibility. Yeah, right. Personal responsibility. If you destroyed the note, if you shredded it, if you broke the chain of ownership, if you can't tell me who really owns it, then you lose. You eat the losses. And again, the way to bring order into this, because this is going to take years, is to have a freeze. The question of the years, right? According to the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, I believe they agree that it's not a matter of months. This is going to be a matter of years. So let's make it a nice round number. They're telling us, oh, we don't like uncertainty. We need certainty about economic conditions going forward. Fine, we'll give you certainty. Foreclosures on primary residences are banned. Other ones, if somebody's flipping 20 condos, then, of course, the foreclosures on those can go forward, provided that they're legal, provided that you can produce the note. Now, let's look at the really wretched posture of the Obama administration. One of the newspapers that's most worried about the ferment for a freeze is, of course, the Washington Post, the house organ of the Federal Reserve System, going back to Eugene Meyer, the Roosevelt hater and supporter of the British-dominated gold standard back in the 1930s. So here we have Thursday, October 14th, yesterday, here on the Ides of October. U.S. to lenders, no moratorium, but fix the mess. Well, unfortunately, the mess is beyond fixing. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. You know how it is. They love these expressions. Now they're going to get them turned against them. Federal regulators sought Wednesday to prevent the growing furor over improper foreclosures from escalating, pressing mortgage lenders to replace flawed and fraudulent court documents while insisting that foreclosures continue apace. Oh, continue apace, that American working families get thrown out. They shouldn't get thrown out under any circumstances, and now it's going to be pressure the courts to go with the rocket docket. Now, Obama could, of course, stop a whole series of foreclosures just with a simple executive order without any other thing. We'll go into the remedies here in just a minute. But we have the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, Federal Housing Finance Agency. And what's with them? Well, they basically own Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So this is an agency that oversees and directs what Fannie and Freddie do. The obvious thing is Obama writes an executive order and says, stop foreclosures, boys. You are property of the U.S. federal government. We bailed you out. We saved you. And we're going to do something for the working families of America and for the rule of law and for individual responsibility and all these wonderful slogans you can festoon your press release with. We're stopping foreclosures. Make it open-ended, right? You can... You don't have to say 5 years. So it's better to say 5 years, then you get certainty. But you could also say at least 3 months, at least 6 months, and then once it's in place, it's going to be hard to remove it because then the obvious vested interests of the American people begin to coalesce around the new policy. So the head, by the way, if you want to write somebody a letter, you want to make a phone call, here's one. Edward DeMarco, DeMarco. Edward DeMarco is the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. He oversees Fannie and Freddie, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, right? Federal National Mortgage and Federal, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. There's also the FHA, Federal Housing Administration. They have a role in this too. Obama has to issue an executive order stopping foreclosures by all of those entities. That would do a lot. That would put the pressure. That would be, an act of presidential leadership. Now, there are more things that can be done from the White House, but this is the beginning. Now, what do we get? The opposite. Last Sunday, as you can read at Tarpley.net, in the midst of this back and forth between Wasserman Schultz, who wants the freeze, and Cantor, the reactionary Republican who doesn't want the freeze, up steps the sleazy, discredited David Axelrod. And he says, I don't know about a freeze on foreclosures. That might cause problems for the real estate market. Oh, the market. And if you listen to this debate, you will see that the whole reactionary side, Republican and Democrats, are more concerned with this abstraction they call the market than with American working families. And the market is a pseudonym for what? Angelo Mozillo of Countrywide. We'll be back in a minute.